Hey guys, Fox here with a deck profile for you guys today on my pure Godpunks. As you guys saw in the game against my buddy Anthony, really been liking the pure version. Really doesn't need Lost World, as you guys saw in the video. Can really function well without it. For those of you who don't know, was basically my original deck, not including a starter deck. I did have the original Cerberus starter deck, but really nobody in our play group really was that into the game outside of a few players, so it really never took off. But then my buddy Costa did really start enjoying the game, and he got us all back into it, which was really nice. And he was the one that originally helped me build the deck from his box. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Got Banjo, the Banjo flag, the Banjo man himself, best character, and Brawl Juices as our buddy. And for the item, we are running 3 of Hermes Bat. Really one of the best cards in the deck. For those of you who don't know, it's a equip cost. You put a Godpunk from your drop zone into the soul and pay 1 of the opponent's gauge. This card can attack even if Godpunk is on center. All Godpunk monsters in the field cannot be destroyed or returned to hand by your opponent's card effects. All size 2 or less Godpunks on the field get size reduced by 2. It's got Penetrate, Triple Attack, and Soul Guard. So just really amazing. It lets you have potentially all 3 versions of Brawl Juices on the field at one time. It's got Triple Attack, so it really helps you finish games as well. It gives the protection to all your creatures, so it really checks all the boxes of everything you want in an item in Buddyfight. And then as far as the creatures go, running 2 still of the card whose name they do not want you to pronounce, Zugagagaya. Sounds like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Zugagagaya. You pay 2 opponent's gauge, put the top card of your deck into its soul, and then if you have a weapon equipped, so like this, its size on the field is reduced by 2. Other than during your opponent's start phase, when the number of cards in your opponent's hand increases, they choose a hand card and drop it. Only activates once per turn. It's got Penetrate, Double Attack, Soul Guard, and 3 critical. So it's really good if you go first. So a lot of times you can reduce their gauge with this Brawl Juice, or if you don't open him, you just call this out because it pays 2 of their gauge, so they're immediately starting the game with 0 gauge. It's a really good card, and then if they try to search on their turn or they draw on their turn outside of their draw phase, they just get punished for it, which is really nice. Then for the Brawl Juices, I had cut this down to 1 in my Lost World build, and I think that was a mistake because I feel like this is the best Brawl Juice by far the more I play him. This is top tier. How can he not be the best? He's top tier, Deity Might, Brawl Juice. You pay a total of any 2 gauge for his call cost. He's got Plunder. When he attacks, drop 1 of your opponent's gauge and put the top card of your deck into your gauge. And then at the end of your turn, if your opponent has 1 or less gauge, put a card from your opponent's field into the drop zone. It's got Double Attack. It's a really good card. You eat 2 of your opponent's gauge. If you're going first, you just lock them out of a lot of plays, especially if you have Dead Deity on the field. That's, if they charge and draw, they're losing that as well. So they have to rely on their hand cards to build their gauge back up or their monsters effects. Just really amazing card. If you're going second, it's got the Double Attack, so you can eat through if they build up even more gauge than that. And it's a removal as well. So just really, really solid card. 3 of the Sky Crushing Deity Strike Brawl Juice from Ragnarok. He's pretty good. He a lot of times I don't know. He can become situational at times because especially if you go first, because his call cost is put 2 cards in total from your field and your opponent's field into the drop zone. And it's got Plunder. When this card attacks and destroys your opponent's monster, deals damage to your opponent, they choose and put a hand card into their gauge. And if they put a card, you draw a card. And then it's, of course, got Double Attack. So it's a really good card. Like I said, if you're going first, really a lot of times don't call it. If you get in the drop zone, if you're going first, it's nice because of the 1 spell card. But, it's still a solid card. And then the original bad boy himself, Top Fist, Vainglory Brawl Juices. His call cost is you pay one of your opponent's gauge, pull one of your opponent's cards into the drop zone, and pay one of their life to call him. And then his plunder is when he attacks and destroys your opponent's monster or deals damage to your opponent, you gain 2 life, they lose 2 life. It's a really good card. Still really solid for being one of the first cards from Ace. Just really an amazing card. It really holds up and stands the test of time, which just shows you how good of a card it is. And then probably the best monster in the entire deck for dysfunctional. I always have trouble with her name as well. Halea. She's a size 2 act. Choose up to 2 Godpunks with different sizes in your drop. Other than her, you can pay 1 gauge and rest her if you do put the chosen cards in your hand, not once per turn. So you can loop your Brawl Juices if you go second. You could just remove everything your opponent has on the field. And remember, your cards don't target and they do not destroy, they send. So it gets around a lot of stuff. Just basically clear your opponent's entire board going second with her. And you just recur any important cards that you need. And you can even just get card advantage through your size 1s, which I'll show you once I get to the 1. And then we're running 4 of the Crazed Girl deity, Gotharist Glythiris. You pay 1 opponent's gauge. Your opponent cannot call monsters from the drop zone, which is relevant at times. And when she attacks, if your opponent has 1 or less gauge, your opponent chooses and drops a hand card. It's when she attacks, she does not have to hit. So as long as, even if they nullify the attack, they're still discarding a card. So they're basically losing 2 cards on that attack, which is really nice. And then 4 of one of the other best cards in the deck, Thrashing Daipan. If your opponent goes first and doesn't leave you any gauge, you really need him to start your entire, basically every play in your deck, really. He says when he enters the battlefield, put the top card of your deck, put the top card of your opponent's deck into their gauge. You put the top 2 cards of your deck in your gauge, and then if you have another Godpunk on the field, draw a card. So really good. You can recur him. If your opponents try to use all of their gauge, so you can't call your units, you just call him, recur him. So you really doesn't hurt you too much when they use all their gauge. And then one, my buddy, you could call it with one of the impacts I'll show you later, just to call out your Brawl Juice when you get it in the drop zone. So really not a bad card. Then running 2 Roaring Hydra. I'd cut this in the Lost World build, so this is what came back in when I took the Lost World out. I was running 1 of it, I believe, actually, but when it attacks and destroys your opponent's monster, deals damage to your opponent, drop 1 of their gauge. If not, your opponent chooses and drops a hand card. Mainly I put an extra 1 in because in the pure version, especially with the spell card, or even with the size 2, you want 2 different sizes. So this gives you another size, which is really nice. So that's it for the monsters. As far as the impacts go, we're running 1 a wise move. Its cast cost is you pay 2 gauge in a life, call a battle deity robo monster or a size 1 from your drop by paying its cast cost or call cost. So you use this to call your My Buddy to get an extra Brawl Juice call, which is really nice. And then 2 absolute power Galados Exterminate, or Galados Exterminate, not sure how you pronounce it. Really good card. If you tear through your opponent's hand with your size 2 Brawl Juice and your dead deity, you could finish off the rest of the cards in their hand with this card. It's paid 4 gauge, which seems like a lot, but you build a lot of gauge in this deck. Deal 3 damage to your opponent, gain 3 life. Your opponent chooses and discards 2 cards, and you draw 2 cards, then end the final phase. So really good card. Then as far as spells, running 4 all is mine, pay 1 gauge, put it up to 1 Godpunk monster item from your deck in your hand, and you can only cast 1 per turn, so it just searches you everything in the deck basically. 4 strongest legend top fist, lets you play your monsters during your opponent's turns, which is really strong because all your Brawl Juices are basically removal spells then. Remember, you can only play it during the battle phase. As you saw in my one video, I did misplay with this. But my spine was on fire that day. So this, basically, you pay 1 gauge and 1 life during either player's attack phase. You choose up to 2 Godpunks with different sizes from your drop zone. And by paying their call cost, you can call them to separate areas. So really good. Just really helps you disrupt your opponent's attacks, remove your opponent's attackers, remove your opponent's items, basically anything that's a problem for you, just get rid of it. Also can help you finish games on your turn. You're swinging out, they just eventually run out of nulls. Then we're running 4 Scariest Stare. The only really, I guess you could say, damage prevention in the deck. But I do consider this damage prevention because you are usually getting rid of their monsters that are going to attack you. This is a counter. You can only cast it if you have a Godpunk on the field. You choose a card on your opponent's field, and for this turn, the chosen card gets critical -3, and if it's critical with 0, you draw a card. So it's just really good. It's card advantage. You know, it reduces it till end of turn. So even if it's got 5 critical and triple attack, it's still only going to be dealing you 6 damage. So it's just an amazing card. 3 Top Dread. Extortion. Basically what this does is your opponent gets a gauge. If you have a Godpunk monster in your field, you check the top 3, add 1 hand, the rest go into your gauge. So if your opponent locks himself out of gauge, it's another option for you, and it gives you card advantage, helps you surge. 3 Dead Deity, card's amazing, just really needed in the deck. You can run 4 if you want. I just find it gets a little cloggy at 4. It's a set card, and then basically at the start of your opponent's main phase, you choose and use one of the following 2. They drop a hand card and you draw a card, or you drop one of your opponent's gauge and put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. So you can lock your opponent out of your gauge, you can grind down their hand. Either way, it's really good. And then I'm running 3 Immortal Speech. Have to have a Godpunk on the field. You pay 2 gauge, your opponent discards a card, and you draw 2. So it's just Pot of Greed, but your opponent also discards. And then to round out the deck, we're running 1 Almighty Group. Gives all your Godpunks 3k, and then during your turn, when a card is put in your opponent's gauge by a card effect, you gain 2 life and draw a card. It only goes off once per turn, but there are a lot of cards in the deck that give your opponents a gauge, such as Extortion and the size 1. So you really get a lot of value out of the card. That's pretty much it. I don't really think I'd change anything. Really nothing else I would consider running. The only thing I might change really is I might change my buddy to top tier deity Brawl Juices, just because it's just such a good card. But yeah, that's basically the deck. Really enjoying it. Like I said, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. And let me know what deck you'd like to see profiled next, because definitely trying to keep the game alive, and I think the only ones posting Buddyfight videos right now are me and my buddy Costa. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next video.